going on, guys? Happy Victory Monday to you all. Again, sorry about my setup. I'm still trying to figure all of this out. But I do have my new camera, which I think I need to turn the light down a little bit. Maybe. Okay. But anyway, happy Victory Monday, guys. Finally, a big win on the road against a really tough opponent. So that was really awesome. I see all you guys saying hi in the chat. So hi, guys. Yesterday was very exciting, and I don't think that a lot of people necessarily expected the outcome, or not even just the outcome. I think how the Patriots played. I think I think a lot of people didn't think that they were going to win, but they actually were able to hold their own for the whole game, which was really, really awesome, especially with just how the season has gone this year. The very unpredictable play calling, which we'll get into because that was a bit weird in this game once again. But this was a very collaborative effort, specifically in the second half. This definitely was not Mac Jones' best game of his professional career, but the defense and the special teams, especially, they were able to make up for the mistakes that were made on offense, not just not just Mac Jones, but just in general. So it was really good to see it be like a full team effort, and in weeks prior, it's been very heavy on one side or the other. So it was really cool to see that they were able to do it all together. So let's just get straight into this because, again, I broke the game down drive by drive. I think that it's a lot easier to kind of digest the game and go over everything that has happened. And I don't know, I think it's just a little more difficult to try and remember when things happened and how that affected the game, other than going through it by drive. So let's get straight into it. So obviously the Patriots won 27-24. A bit of a nail biter towards the end, I would say, coming down to an onside kick, which we'll get into. So the Patriots did defer. So the Chargers started out hot. They had 8 plays, 75 yards, 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Keenan Allen did beat J.C. Jackson right away, which was a little bit nerve-wracking, if we're going to be honest. I think, Gilmore's gone, and we've had kind of sketchy, very inconsistent play from Jalen Mills. So, a lot of pressure is being put on J.C. Jackson to be cornerback 1. That's basically what he's playing for because he is in a contract season. So that was a little bit scary. So he got beaten by Keenan Allen for 41 yards. But Van Noy and Phillips were able to stop Eckler on 3rd down, but the Chargers did convert on 4th and 1. So they got a new set of downs. And this was interesting, too. So they did, of course, go for it with Eckler. Of course they did, because he's one of their, if not the top guy. And Hightower was able to stop him from what it seemed like getting into the end zone to score. And then you saw basically the entire Chargers offense just start pushing Eckler over into the end zone, which obviously they got the points and it ended up being 7-0 right off the bat. But what I thought was interesting, and if you follow me on Twitter, then you might have seen this tweet, but every time I see that, no matter who it is, even when the Patriots are the ones that are doing it, but when I see a team pushing one of their teammates over the line, whether it's, for a first down or for a touchdown or whatnot, it always reminds me that used to be flagged. And I remember, I don't know what year it was, I couldn't tell you, but I remember that it happened with LeGarrette Blount, and I think it was for a touchdown. And the Patriots were flagged for it, and I don't even know what they called the penalty, but it was something about, that they can't push them over the line. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. As we see it basically every single week, in almost every single game this is happening. So it just kind of like stood out to me because I just remember the Patriots getting penalized for that. And now it's just totally cool. And it just makes you wonder, like, was it just a thing because it was the Patriots that did it and the Patriots were successful with it? So was that the reason? I don't know. But so the Chargers are up 7-0, as I said. But the Patriots came out and matched them pretty quickly as well in 10 plays, 75 yards, 4 minutes, 28 seconds. Mac Jones opened up with a big pass to Kendrick Bourne for 14 yards on 3rd and 7. And then he had a great deep pass to Nelson Aguilar for 44 yards. That was really cool. This is something that I've thought, or I've said multiple times since they signed Aguilar, that he is definitely one of their better deep threats. And I know that there's a meme out there, and a lot of people like to bring it up, especially if Aguilar drops the ball or he doesn't catch it in some way. Maybe he ran too fast, too slow, whatever. I get it. It's a funny meme. Ha, ha, ha. But he is a really great deep threat. And so it was really great to see that starting out early. And hopefully, as I say, almost every single week, hopefully that is something they can continue every game, because we haven't seen a lot of big plays from Mac. And so the fact that he's able to do that with someone like Aguilar, I think is a big deal. They need that deep threat. And then the Chargers did get a defensive holding call, which gave the Patriots a fresh set of downs on 3rd and 11. And then this was really cool. So they used Justin Herron as an eligible receiver, basically as a 3rd tight end on the line. And that was for the scoring play when Damian Harris got a 1-yard rushing touchdown. So I really liked that because, as I've said, I really want to see them using the double tight ends a lot more. I think that, you don't sign basically the 2 top tight ends that were available in free agency to not really use them. And so they finally put them on the line together. And then, of course, use Justin Herron for that extra big man on the line. And Damian Harris, of course, was able to very easily score, which was the 4th straight game for the Patriots to score on the opening drive. Thank goodness. It's now, a good streak. Instead, at the beginning of the season, it was, this is a such and such game without scoring on the opening drive. So we love to see that. And this was interesting too. So the 42-yard completion to Nelson Aguilar traveled 37 yards in the air, which is the deepest pass so far for Jones this season. So, that, I think I'm interested to see if we're going to see more of that. Obviously, once we get to, I have thoughts on the first half, but Mac obviously did not come out strong. He came out strong, but there was a lot of mistakes made. I don't know if he was too amped or what it was, but there was a lot of trying to push the ball down the field, and it was just a lot of overthrows and just like too much excitement, I think. That was that. So the Chargers' second drive, it was 6 plays, 23 yards for 3 minutes and 43 seconds. This is when Matt Judon finally got his sack, which was his first sack in 2 games, which is crazy to think I think he's up to 8 sacks for the year now, which is crazy to think that he went 2 games without one. It was a sack for -4 yards on 2nd and 10. So as the drive continued, that led to the Chargers' first punt. Then the Patriots came out with 5 plays, 11 yards for 2 minutes, 52 seconds. They ended up punting as well, but we finally did see Ramondre Stevenson back in the lineup. He was not a healthy scratch. They were using him a lot in this drive. They used him in the passing game, and the run game. And this is when Mac was sacked. I believe it was his only sack of the game? I believe so. It was by Tillery for a -7 yards, which brought them to 4th and 12, which resulted, as I said, in a punt. The Chargers came out as well. 5 plays, 86 yards, 2 minutes and 16 seconds. This was it was a little bit of a disheartening drive, I would say. I think that it might have put a little bit of worry into a lot of Patriots fans' heads. At least it did for me, because, you like to see that their second drive was a punt. So you were kind of hopeful that maybe this was going to continue. However, they came out pretty strong on this drive as well. Justin Jackson ran for 75 yards, and J.C. Jackson was able to actually catch up to him. It really looked like Justin Jackson was going to be gone, like that he was going to get a score. Thankfully, J.C. Jackson is fast and got him down. Of course, it did result in an eventual touchdown to Keenan Allen, which then brought the score 14-7 Chargers. But Van Noy was good on this drive, which, we've talked about him a little bit throughout the season, but definitely not in the way that we were kind of hoping for, I guess. A lot of people were hoping to see the return of the boogeyman, which I have said a million times that I think that we should retire that nickname because I feel like it brings bad juju to this team. But I don't think that we've seen that so far. But it was good to see Van Noy quite a bit in this game. He was applying a lot of pressure, so he had a batted pass on this drive as well. And Justin Jackson's 75-yard rush, was the largest allowed by the Patriots since 2017, which was 87 by Melvin Gordon. I thought that was kind of shocking that it was Melvin Gordon, but I guess that's a name that we know. I don't know if people really know Justin Jackson's, no shade, but it is what it is. So the Patriots then came back out after that drive and had a very confusing drive, I would say. It was 9 plays, 74 yards, 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Johnny Smith got a false start penalty, which brought them to 2nd and 9. There was an unnecessary roughness call on the Chargers for 15 yards, obviously. And Mac was able to get them going with a deep pass to Hunter Henry for 33 yards to the Chargers 4-yard line. But they didn't take advantage of the fact that the Chargers have the 32nd ranked run defense. They threw on 3 of the 4 downs. So it was very bizarre. Even Mike Reese tweeted it was puzzling play calling. And as I said in response to that is, that it's bad when Mike Reese says it's bad because for the most part, Mike Reese is not overly critical. He'll criticize them, of course, when they deserve it. But you don't see this type of stuff a lot from someone like Mike Reese. So the fact that he was calling it out, that it was pretty bad. It just didn't really make any sense why they wouldn't take advantage of how bad their run defense is. I don't even know. Actually, I think it was this. I don't even think that if I remember correctly, Stevenson and Harris weren't even on the field for those plays, or at least the last one, going forward on 4th. So again, what were they doing? What were they planning? If you have 3 out of your 4 attempts were passing and obviously you're not doing it, then why are you going to keep doing it? I just don't get it. It's another moment where you're kind of scratching your head, questioning what Josh McDaniels is thinking. It just doesn't make any sense. The Chargers then took over 3 plays, 6 yards, 1 minute and 45 seconds. They punted, which was great. The fact that they were backed up into their own end zone, basically. And the defense held them back to make sure that nothing good came from it. Considering they left points on the field in that moment, the Patriots offense did. This was a very big stop for the defense because this is when the score could have started getting out of hand. The Patriots then came in 9 plays, 30 yards, 3 minutes and 22 seconds. They were able to get a 24-yard field goal, which brought the score 10-14. The Chargers followed that up with another drive that ended in a punt. And Justin Herbert was sacked on this play, or this drive too, by Lawrence Guy for -5 yards. They were able to get to Justin Herbert, and I think that wasn't something that at least I was predicting. Justin Herbert is a really good quarterback, and he is quick, and he is able to make some crazy plays. So the fact that they were able to apply so much pressure to him and get to him as often as they did, which I will address later with the defensive stats, was really good. I think that game plan was really, really good. They were able to just dominate in that area for sure. The Patriots came out again, punting. And then the last 2 drives before halftime, the Chargers had 4 plays, 12 yards, 47 seconds. There was a short pass to Austin Eckler that was intercepted by Adrian Phillips, returned for 12 yards. Shout out to Adrian Phillips. I know that the title of this video has his name in there, but he is definitely one of my favorite Patriots. I think that I have said that probably on here multiple times. If not on here, then definitely on like Dear Pats Nation and on my Twitter. Definitely one of my favorite acquisitions that the Patriots have picked up over the years. I think that he is a little bit underrated by a lot of people, and he's been really great on defense and special teams. And this was definitely a game where he showcased that. Slightly of a revenge game because if you weren't aware, he was also a former Charger. And so, coming out swinging like that to end the half was really cool. The Patriots were able to have a 5-play, 10-yard drive with only one completed pass on that drive, which was to Kendrick Bourne for 10 yards, but they were able to get a 48-yard field goal because why wouldn't they, with Nick Folk, which brought the score 13-14 Chargers. Yeah, I think Nick Folk is definitely, like, I would say if you're going to try and pick an MVP of the Patriots, not of the league, but of the Patriots, Nick Folk is up there. Thank goodness that the Patriots have him because they've had a really difficult time trying to replace kickers since Gostowski. So the fact that they've got a guy who's 37, 38 years old, I'm all for it. He's still one of the best kickers in the league right now. And the Patriots have needed him a lot the past 2 years. So Faisal says Nick Folk is a league MVP. For sure. I mean, there's a lot of kicker issues this year when it comes to every team, basically. I think it was a week or two ago where it was like the weekend of kickers failing, like missing extra points, missing field goals. It was just a hot mess of kickers. I think that Folk missed once that weekend, so thankfully that wasn't like a huge issue for the Patriots. But there's a lot of teams that would love to have a reliable kicker like Nick Folk. So Patriots are certainly #blessed. And then I wanted to go over some of my first half thoughts because I felt like I had a lot of them and I want to go over them and see if you guys felt the same. So obviously, as I said, to start the game, Matt came out strong, but he was definitely struggling. He was 8 of 22 for 126 yards and a sack in the first half. It looked like he was trying to make too many big plays downfield, but he was overthrowing and just like straight up missing guys. And I believe that Mike Reese said that he had 7 overthrows total in the first half. So they definitely made that halftime adjustment where I don't know if it was just Mac, trying to make those big plays early or if those were really the play calls. As we know, Mac and Josh McDaniels have expressed that Mac will change the plays. So we obviously don't know which plays those are, but yeah, it was just a lot of that kind of stuff at the beginning of the game. So hard to say how much of it was play calling and how much of it was Mac just trying to do too much too soon. Thankfully, that did not trend into the second half. Also, the Patriots ended the first half with all 3 timeouts, which I thought was a little weird. Not very Belichick-like that they didn't use any timeouts, especially when they had the ball to end the half. Luckily, they were able to get into field goal range, obviously, with the help of Adrian Phillips' interception. And then, of course, Belichick, thankfully, did not do what he did several weeks ago, where he thought it was a good idea to take knees before halftime with a minute and a half. Granted, this time they had 47 seconds, but still, it seems like they do believe in Mac a little bit more than they did against the Bucs, I believe. Play calling was an issue again, which I saw that all over Twitter as well. As I said, Mike Reese even called it puzzling. It was specifically in the red zone. The red zone play calling was very weird. I think that they were also just trying to incorporate receivers a lot, which is fine, whatever. But when you're playing against the team with a horrible run defense, why wouldn't you take advantage of pounding the ball down their throat? It just doesn't make any sense to me. When you got a great back in Damian Harris, and then you have a great up and coming back in Ramondre Stevenson, there's no reason why you wouldn't be using them and taking advantage of that. But It is what it is, I guess. It's typical Josh McDaniels. Also, big question mark for officiating, which we don't really want to be blaming anything on officiating, but it was a little bit weird yesterday. Like, why was there no penalty on Tillery after he had an obvious unnecessary roughness on Mac after there were several whistles that had called the play dead. One of those plays that did not make sense, and it seemed like even the commentators were confused why there was no play. David Andrews actually commented on it post game, and I have that quote right here. He said, "I heard a whistle. I think 21 other guys heard a whistle, so I didn't take too kindly to that. I thought it was a BS play," and I would agree with them 100%. Didn't make any sense why the referees were just cool with it. I think there was like 4 whistles that had already blown at that point, and so it just seemed like a really dirty play that he ended up getting away with, basically, because nothing happened. Yeah, Faisal says it was a dirty hit. It was just so unnecessary, and it's like there's no way that you didn't hear anything. I mean, LA fans are not historically good fans when it comes to LA football. I mean, a lot of people were saying that yesterday felt very much like it was a Patriots home game because of how many Patriots fans were in attendance. So you can't really say that it was super loud and you couldn't hear anything when the Patriots offense is on the field. It's not going to be that loud. So that was weird. And of course, the question still is, why was Harris and Stevenson kept off the field during the 4th down play? Makes no sense why they would have been kept off. Again, I'm going to reiterate this so many times in this video that the Chargers had the 32nd ranked run defense. There's no reason why you would be keeping your running backs off the field, especially when you were at like 4th and 1. There was absolutely no reason for it. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if anyone asked McDaniels post game about that. Hopefully, maybe they'll ask him this week if they didn't, but just very, very weird. So coming after halftime, the Patriots, of course, because they deferred at the beginning, got the ball after halftime. They had a weird drive. It was just the way it ended was a weird drive. So it was 10 plays for 48 yards, 4 minutes, 29 seconds. A lot of Harris, Stevenson, and Bolden on this drive. We finally saw N'Keal Harry. He is alive and well since we haven't really seen a ton of him since he came back from injury. He had a great reception for 15 yards. Damian Harris had a great rush for 28 yards that resulted in a touchdown, but that was nullified because Justin Herron had offensive holding, which then pushed them back to the Chargers 37. I'm sorry, 37. No, 27. I was right. And this is when Kendrick Bourne kind of made us all, our souls drop into our bums, if we're being honest, because he fumbled the ball and it was recovered by the Chargers at their own 37. So this is when, you coming into the 3rd quarter, it's 13-14, definitely a tangible win. And, this is something that they've had some issues with all season long, with ball security. And the first half was pretty good. It wasn't bad. There were no interceptions, no fumbles, whatnot. And then to come out starting right away in the 3rd quarter with another fumble, it just got you really nervous because, it only takes one play for a game to get completely out of hand, and you never want to play catch up. You're only down by 1, and you want to make sure that you're staying within 1 point. You don't want anything to get out of hand. I don't know. I do remember seeing that Kendrick Bourne was not involved in any of the snaps for a bit, at least, after he fumbled. I don't know if he was held up for the rest of the game. I couldn't find that information. But he was punished a little bit for that fumble, which I am completely on board with because this is just becoming too much of an issue. It's things like that the Patriots are shooting themselves in the foot. It's like nobody hates the Patriots offense more than the Patriots offense because like they are completely capable of winning games, and then they do something like this and it's just like, what are we doing? There's no reason for this to be happening. It's just silly mistakes. So then the Chargers took over, but I do want to talk about this. This was the 6th fumble lost this season, and that is now tied for the 2nd most with the Chiefs. And that is more than they lost all last season, which I find interesting because a lot of people were very critical of last year with ball security. And I'm not saying it wasn't an issue last year, but a lot of people wanted to pin a lot of that on Cam. And I think a lot of that is because of the fumble against the Bills. But they only had 5 fumbles last year. And I say only because we're already at 6 and the season's like halfway over. So it's just kind of funny that since that was such a talking point last season, the same type of reaction is not going to be had towards the team this year as it was last year, because it's not Cam Newton this year. Everyone loves Mac Jones and not everyone loved Cam Newton. So the Chargers did take over after that fumble. Thankfully, it ended in a punt. They were saved on this, though, when they punted. Judon almost blocked the punt, but he did hit the kicker very, very gently. I would say it was not intentional. It just ended up being how his body fell. But the Chargers were also flagged for catch interference on Gunnar Olszewski. So thankfully they had to repunt the ball. That could have ended again. Another thing that was a mistake that could have been avoided. Judon could not have asked for a better result in his mistake. So the Patriots did come out 10 plays, 31 yards, 5 minutes, 9 seconds. Damian Harris rushed for 23 yards to the Chargers 11. And this is when Isaiah Wynn was flagged for offensive holding. And it ended up in a 48-yard field goal, which brought the score 16-14 New England. There was some back and forth with left tackle yesterday. Isaiah Wynn did get flagged, and then when they replaced him, then they were flagged. So it's just been a hot mess on the offensive line. Once again, they just can't get into the groove. Certainly a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season, where Mac couldn't be kept off the ground. But still, Isaiah Wynn is not, I think, living up to what the Patriots wanted him to be. So the Chargers then came back and they got their own 48-yard field goal. Thankfully, the drive was saved by Miles Bryant. He broke up a pass that was intended for Keenan Allen on 3rd down, which ended up forcing the 48-yard field goal, which brought it to 17-16 Chargers. Let me bring this up. Faisal, because Faisal's the only one who's commenting. Shout out to you, Faisal. Thank you. He says, I feel bad for Cam. Honestly, teams choosing Trevor Siemian, Mike White, Taylor Heineke, and Geno Smith over him. Yes, I can say that Mike White, he did really well yesterday. Obviously, we're going to have to see how that continues, but I know that there's some talks about them maybe not wanting Zach Wilson to be back in at quarterback for the Jets, which would be a very interesting storyline. And thank goodness that is not something that we have to deal with on the Patriots, but it's very Jets. But yeah, Trevor Siemian doesn't make any sense to me. Taylor Heineke, I don't know about Ron Rivera and if he would bring Cam in, how that relationship is, I don't know. But yeah, I've said about Seattle to call him too. Even the Texans, I would not wish the Texans on Cam, but yeah, there are certainly teams that should be calling him and they're not, and it's not something I think I'll ever understand. But anyway, let's get back into this. So the Patriots' next drive was 3 plays, 8 yards, 2 minutes, 13 seconds. It was a very predictable play calling drive, especially on the last play. It was Bolden for I believe it was 3rd and 1. And he ended up losing a yard. So it was just too obvious to basically everyone what was going to be happening. So again, another issue with Josh McDaniels just running too much vanilla offense. The Chargers came back on the next drive, 6 plays, 16 yards, 3 minutes and 15 seconds. This was an interesting thing too. There was a penalty on the Chargers for offensive holding, which Belichick then challenged. He was challenging the spot of the offensive holding, claiming that the hold happened in the end zone, which would have resulted in a Patriots safety. But from what I understand from reading up on this from other people in the media and their takes on it, is that the holding penalty that they called was not the holding penalty that Belichick thought that was flagged. And so technically Belichick was correct in challenging it as far as the play he believed was the one that was flagged, because that would have resulted in a safety, but they can't just change the flag. Obviously, they called it on a certain player, and it wasn't caught. The other holding was not caught. So, of course, the Patriots lost the challenge. But this would result in the play of the game with Adrian Phillips once again, with a pick six. I actually missed this. I stepped outside for just a few minutes to take my dogs outside, and I missed a whole bunch of stuff. So Adrian Phillips had a pick six, and the Patriots went for a 2-point conversion, which was successful with Jacoby Myers, which then brought the score 24-17 Patriots. And this was a funny stat too, that was the third 2-point conversion for Jacoby Myers, but he still does not have a touchdown. Now you can see over the last couple of weeks, especially, and I think Mac Jones has spoken about it, that you can tell Mac wants Jacoby to get a touchdown. It's just not worked out that way. So, I'm glad for him that he at least got the 2-point conversion. Like, obviously it's not the same thing as a touchdown, but hopefully that'll happen. I feel like that's going to be a talking point until it does happen. And just for the sake of Jacoby, and then just like all of us rooting for him, you hope it happens sooner than later. The Chargers' next drive was a punt as well. The Patriots came out on their next drive and were just trying to wind that clock. There was 14 plays, 54 yards, 6 minutes and 56 seconds, trying to wind that clock down to make sure the Chargers did not have enough time to catch up the score, as they were down 10 at this point. N'Keal Harry was spotted on this drive as well with another 15-yard reception. And they got to the Chargers 7-yard line, but they did get a delay of game and ended up kicking another field goal. And I'm sorry, they were down 7 at that point. This is when they were down by 10. New England 27, LA 17. The Chargers came out again with 6 minutes, 38 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Herbert was sacked by Barmore and Judon for -8 yards, making it 3rd and 18. But then on the next play, Guyton had a great play over Jalen Mills for 18 yards, and the drive continued to have a touchdown by Josh Palmer for 24 yards, bringing it 27-24 New England. Jalen Mills beaten on a big moment once again. Certainly not ideal for Jalen Mills or the Patriots in general. He's having very up and down season. There has been some games where he's phenomenal, and other games it's just like, what is happening? And this was just one of those moments where, you didn't want him to have that moment. But they did go for the onside kick, but it failed as the kick was recovered by Hunter Henry. No one else but Hunter Henry, another guy who was a former Charger in the revenge game, which is not really revenge because he chose to leave the Chargers. But still, we love the narrative, right? The storyline, the hype. And then the Patriots are able to take knees to close out the game, winning 27-24. This now ties, this brings Bill Belichick to 9 wins behind George Halas with 324 wins, for second on the all-time coaching wins list, which is crazy. There are 9 games left in the season. But I would assume that the Patriots are not going to win the rest of the games. There's still some challenging opponents left, of course. But assuming that he'll be coaching next season, he can certainly get there next year. And D22 Williams says, great grab by Hunter on the kick. It really was like very reactive, perfect timing for something like that to happen. Especially when you know that it was coming, you knew that they were going to want to do the onside kick. And onside kicks are always something that no matter who's playing, it always just gets my heart going, because it's like, just don't touch the ball. Just don't touch it and everything will be fine. But of course, when you're trying to make a play, you got to go after it. So it was really good to see that Hunter Henry was able to do that and to not mess it up for us. Hence why in the post game, little talk that Belichick had with the team. He gave a game ball to Adrian Phillips and Hunter Henry, which was really cool. Very well deserved by both guys. Adrian Phillips had one heck of a day. Mac Jones, though, on the other hand, was not amazing. He was 18 of 35 for 218 yards. He definitely did better in the second half. But, you know, it's still kind of like rookie mistakes, and it's hard to say, of course, because Josh McDaniel's play calling has not been the best, but I think that Mac was definitely trying to do too much, and they cleaned that up a bit in the second half. They were able to bring in Bolden a lot, which is good. And I know that he's not everyone's favorite necessarily, but he's reliable. How long has he been on the Patriots? It's been like forever. So the fact that they were able to use the running game a little bit more is good as well. Damian Harris did end the game with 23 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown. Total, they had 39 carries, 141 yards, and one touchdown. And of course, this is like another game where Mac was able to use every receiver, basically. He had thrown to, I couldn't even tell you. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Nelson Aguilar had the best day as far as yardage. He had 3 of 6 for 60 yards. Kendrick Bourne, 4 of 7 for 38 yards and a fumble, which is huge. Jacoby Myers, which, he's being treated like a wide receiver 1, as he's not, getting as much yardage as other receivers. So he was 4 of 9, 37 yards. Hunter Henry was 1 of 3 for 33 yards. So that one giant play, and that was it. N'Keal Harry was 2 of 2 for 30 yards. So, of course, a lot of that was not just on the receivers, because of when you see, 4 of 9, that looks like Jacoby wasn't on point. But although he probably could have caught 1 or 2 of them, I can't remember exactly which ones were which. But Mac was overthrowing a lot, and a lot of that came against Jacoby, or to Jacoby. So although the stats don't look great for Jacoby that yesterday, it was a lot of that was on Mac. And I think that he takes responsibility, and he definitely did after this game, saying, basically the rest of the team made up for his shortcomings. And that type of humility, I know that people say that it gets kind of old, but I think for how young he is and how young he is in his career, it's really good to see that type of maturity, I think, from him, and the fact that he is able to have that humility as well. Because there are a lot of guys out there that would throw the team under the bus and blame some other people and not take responsibility for their own bad play. D22 Williams says, I felt like Mac was overcoached. Yeah, it was hard to say. I feel like they were definitely calling a lot of deep passing plays, and it just wasn't working. And like I said, like a million times in this, it was a little bit weird coming to this game, knowing how bad the Chargers run defense was, and they were trying so hard to throw the ball in the first half. It just didn't really make any sense to me. I don't know if they were maybe trying to test out their passing defense. I don't know. But thankfully they were able to overcome that a bit and to utilize the rushing game a little bit more. But yeah, it was hard to say, but it looks like it was more of a McDaniels thing for sure. Ross says, hey, Mick Homer, does it concern you that Harris took so many snaps against the Chargers? Getting concerned they are not rotating the running back core more. Yeah, obviously he's gotten banged up a bit this year, and I wouldn't say he's necessarily injury prone, but definitely, it is a little bit concerning because he is the guy, and they don't really have a guy after that, with James White being out. And as I've said before, Rex Burkhead is not here either, so you don't really have that security blanket in case your top guy goes down. It seems like they're like Ramondre Stevenson, but they're not. He's a healthy scratch last week, and this week he was in, but he didn't have a whole lot of yardage and didn't have a lot of plays. So last week they did kind of incorporate Bolden a bit more, so maybe that's the guy that they can kind of rotate in, but it seems like they really just put most of the load on Harris. And Hopefully it's going to be okay, but I do think that they need to try and rotate that out or maybe bring in another running back. I don't know. I think the trade deadline is tomorrow, so it doesn't really seem like they'd be able to trade for anybody. But there are some guys that are still available. Like Todd Gurley was a name that I thought would be interesting to sign coming into this season, and he's still available. So they don't necessarily need him, but it would be good to have another guy that they can use in a number one way without necessarily him being the number one, if that makes any sense. Faisal says Mac was trying to play ball, hero ball. I like it, but it won't always work. Yeah, I agree. I think that he was trying to, like I said, too much too soon. It's not really the game to be doing that. Last week was, against the Jets, who were basically doing nothing. So if you wanted to do that, then sure, why not? But not for a team that is bad at against the run. This was definitely not the game to be doing that. And D22 Williams says Mac was hesitating on most throws, something Mac has never done before. Yeah. I don't know. It might have just been nerves, and maybe, they were coming off such a huge and dominating win over the Jets, and maybe there was a little bit of pressure there, or they also came into this game beating the Chargers last year 45-0, and that was with a Cam Newton led team. And a lot of people don't think of last year in a fond manner. So that might have been another thing that they had talked about, or Mac was putting that pressure on him. I don't know. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised about all of this. I didn't expect for Mac to have such a struggle against this team. So let's get into offensive line protections, because that was not bad yesterday. So Ted Karras allowed 1 quarterback hit, 1 hurry, and 2 pressures. Isaiah Wynn, 2 quarterback hits and 2 pressures. Mike Onwenu, who of course is a favorite, 1 hurry, 1 pressure. And Shaq Mason is the one who only allowed 1 sack. So thankfully, this is not something that we're still talking about like the beginning of the year, where he was getting put on the ground like 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a game. Thankfully, it's down to 1. And it seems like we're trending in that direction where the offensive line is clicking, despite there being some inconsistencies with the players and how well they're doing. Having them rotate constantly is a little bit frustrating, but hopefully they're kind of overcoming that, and this is going to keep continuing. Obviously, you can't be successful if your quarterback is on the ground, and despite all of the issues that Mac had yesterday, at least we can't say that he was being hit so much, and that's part of the reason why he was having a hard time. Defensive stats. So the defense came out killing it yesterday. Kyle Duggar led the team with 6 total tackles, but Matt Judon and Christian Barmore. I want people to remember that Christian Barmore is a rookie, and he is having a phenomenal rookie season, kind of reminiscent of Mike Onwenu last year. Kind of like going under the radar, not really being recognized as much as other players, but Barmore is doing really well. And so for Matt Judon, he had 1.5 sacks, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 quarterback hits, 8 hurries, and 10 quarterback pressures on top of 3 stops against the run. So as far as quarterback pressures go, that is the most by a Patriot since Chandler Jones, when he had 11 in 2015 against the Indianapolis Colts. And, we've talked about Chandler Jones on this channel and how much we loved him as a player and how much we kind of wish that he was still around. So the fact that Judon is performing that well, it kind of helps you be like, yeah, no, okay, we like Judon. He's definitely a fan favorite, one of mine too, but he is just killing it. And I am thankful that the Patriots are able to snag him at the price that they did, and hopefully he can be a Patriot for a long time. Christian Barmore, he was also credited with 0.5 sack, 1 quarterback hit, and he currently ranks 1st in quarterback hits with 5, 3rd in hurries with 16, and 5th in pressures with 22 out of all defensive rookies. So again, very on pace with Mike Onwenu last year, who was credited a lot in the media for how well he was doing as a rookie, but I don't really feel like we're hearing the same type of response with Barmore. Maybe it's just, because the Patriots aren't having a great season necessarily. They are 4-4 now, but I think that he deserves a little bit more credit. He's doing great. So coverage stats, a little bit rough for some of them. Jalen Mills allowed the most. He allowed 3 of 4 for 56 yards and a touchdown. He had 1 pass breakup. JC Jackson, not too bad, 2 of 4, 52 yards. Miles Bryant, a little bit rough, 4 of 4 for 30 yards. But Devin McCourty didn't allow anything. Jawan Williams only allowed 1 for 5 yards. Kyle Van Noy was 1 of 3 for 7 yards. So pretty good as far as that goes. We know that Jalen Mills did get beaten on that one play for quite a few yards. So that takes a lot. It takes a lot of that yardage puts a lot of that yardage into perspective, because of that one big play. And then, of course, Adrian Phillips had 2 interceptions, returned for 38 yards, one of which was a pick 6. And quarterback pressures. This is another thing that we want to talk about, because part of the way to get Justin Herbert to not perform well, obviously, is to get to him and to hurry him and apply all that pressure. So Matt Judon had 2 sacks, 8 hurries, as I said, and 10 quarterback pressures. So here's Barmore. He had 1 sack, or half a sack, basically, 2 hurries and 3 pressures. Josh Uche also had 2 hurries and 2 pressures. In total, they had 55 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, 8 passes defended, 6 quarterback hits, and a touchdown. Of course, we saw with the Adrian Phillips pick 6. Special teams, like I said at the beginning, it was just a very collaborative effort. It wasn't just offense or defense. It was a total team effort, and special teams cannot be forgotten. Gunnar Olszewski is having a far better season than I think. I keep saying this, but then people than I anticipated. He was a guy that I even considered last year at the beginning of the year to be a trade candidate or to be a guy that they might drop. But that's definitely not the case. I think that he's kind of solidifying himself as a key special teamer. He had 4 punt returns for 80 yards total, which averaged 20 yards. He had 1 long of 27 yards, and he apparently really is killed it when he is playing against LA in LA. In the 2 games against the Chargers, he has 7 punt returns for 225 yards and a touchdown. That was last year in the blowout, 45-0. And he is the first Patriots player to have 3 20-yard punt returns in a game since Troy Brown in 2000. So the fact that he is able to have these kind of records, and I mean, his name is up there with Troy Brown. That's crazy. So obviously, I think he is going to be a key piece to the special teams for quite a while. And then, of course, we can't forget Nick Folk. He had 4 of 4 field goals, a long of 48, and was 1 of 1 for extra points. Jake Bailey, we can't forget him either. He had 3 punts for 146 yards total, which averaged 48.7, and 2 of them landed within the 20 yards. So, again, collaborative effort. Definitely needed against a team like this. I mean, they were a heavy favorite, especially in the AFC West, since the Chiefs have not been performing up to par from what most people were thinking they were going to make another Super Bowl run. They're being kind of brought back down to earth, I think, this season. And now the Chargers are 1.5 games behind the Raiders. So believe it or not, the Raiders are leading the AFC West, which I don't know that we would have predicted that coming into this season, but here we are. The AFC is kind of weird this year. So do we really want to talk about any of the Charger stats? I'm kind of like, meh, they did whatever. But I did think this is that Joey Bosa. So he was a guy that, of course, you were going to be worried about coming into this game, thinking that he was going to be a huge factor for the Chargers defense. And that just was not the case. He only had 1 hurry against Mike Onwenu. And Onwenu was on him basically the entire game, and he shut down Bosa. So another guy, like I said, he was killing it last year and he's killing it again this year. One of the only seemingly consistent guys on the offensive line. So shout out to Onwenu, because Bosa can be a scary player on the edge, and he held his own. So here are some thoughts for me. I want to see if you guys have anything saying. D22 Williams says Judon Barmore are balling out. Yes, they are. And I agree. This is kind of off topic, but kind of I was talking about it. He said that the DCs have figured out how to defend Mahomes. Absolutely. And I think that's something that people haven't thought about, that they weren't going to be able to just be doing the same thing season in and season out. People are going to be sitting there and watching tape and watching like how you can slow down Mahomes. And they figured that out now. So, yeah, the Chiefs are not a huge threat, it seems, at this point in time. And I love to see it, if you want my honest opinion. And so some thoughts coming in after this game. And I addressed this a little bit earlier, but why does it always seem like the Patriots shoot themselves in the foot in games? Why are their own worst enemy? I feel like this has just been kind of a thing that's just been a theme for the Patriots for quite some time. It just always seems like they are so close in games to win, but then they'll do something, something silly, something so avoidable. And it ends up putting them in a position where they need to play catch up, or it ends up losing them the game. So I think it's just another season where it's happening again. It just seems like it's, like I said, something that happens with the Patriots every single year. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It's just their thing. Another question: why do the referees rarely call holding penalties on opposing defenses when there is obvious holding on Matt Judon? Someone said this, and I can't remember who it was, but they said, I think it was Alex Barth. He said, it seems like Matt Judon gets the Gronk treatment in New England, where he never gets penalties, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I would even say, if we want to say it, Cam Newton, because Cam Newton, when he was in Carolina, for many years, if not his entire time in Carolina, almost never got any penalties from the refs on the hits that he would get. And it's like, you understand he's a runner, but some of those hits, man, they were really bad and they were never called. So it looks like now referees just kind of turn a blind eye to Judon, and regardless of the fact that it happens the entirety of the game, it's almost never called on him, to a point of being ridiculous. And I think that this might just be something that happens all season long, unfortunately, and it's probably going to come up in these streams more often than you probably want to hear about. Another little tidbit, Albert Breer of NBC Sports Boston said the Patriots have won 2 straight since their overtime loss to Dallas, so they are now 4-4, and they are in the wild card race. The Chargers have lost 2 straight following their huge win over Cleveland, falling to 4-3. So, like I said, they are 1.5 back from Vegas. So this definitely, the last 2 games have put the Patriots in better position. And, I would assume that they're probably not going to win the AFC East. I mean, it's completely possible. Anything is possible, but it looks like the Bills are trending in that direction. The Jets did win yesterday, but I think that hopefully we'll be okay. So the Bills, of course, are going to be the biggest issue here, but the AFC is weird and it's not going the way I think anyone would have predicted. Like I said, with the Chiefs kind of falling apart, there's definitely a lot of time for them to fix themselves. They have a game tonight against the Giants, so maybe this will be the week where they're kind of back to playing the way that we're used to seeing Kansas City. But I don't know that any AFC team is necessarily the clear front runner. The Titans barely beat the Colts yesterday. So, it's like there's just no front runner really. But wild card is really good, considering we were on track to not even be considered in the wild card. At least now we don't have to listen to too many people talking about tanking because of the direction that the season's going in. And the Patriots seem like they are the kryptonite for Justin Herbert. He has now faced the Patriots twice in his short career. And in those games, he's posted his worst and second worst passer rating and his worst and second worst completion percentage. And 2 of his 4 career multi-interception games have been against New England. So are they the kryptonite? Are they? I think it's Bill Belichick. I even tweeted this earlier. I think it was I don't remember exactly what the story was, but I said laughs in Belichick. I think that a lot of people got served a little bit because of this win, to prove that Belichick is not done. I think a lot of people wanted to believe that he couldn't survive without Brady, and they've been pushing that a lot this year because of how the season's going. But this was just a game plan that couldn't have gone any better. Other than, of course, the first half issues with the passing game. But, you know, to shut down a hot quarterback like Justin Herbert the way that they have 2 times, is crazy. And obviously Belichick has his number and has been able to, um, win those games in a huge way. It wasn't the same as last year, 45-0, but this was a huge game. I also saw this from Michael David Smith of Pro Football Talk. He said home teams are now 58-62 this NFL season. 14 teams have a better record on the road. 13 teams have a better record at home, and 5 teams have the same record on the road and at home. So the question is, does Von Miller, I was just reading Faisal's comment, does home field advantage exist anymore? And it looks like it does not. Obviously, the Patriots are one of those teams that is doing better on the road than they are at home. But it seems like a lot of teams are doing that this year, which is interesting. I don't know that I necessarily believe that home field advantage doesn't exist. I think it also depends on your fan base. The Patriots had a lot of fans there, but they were playing LA, which is, again, historically known to not be the greatest as far as football fans go. They are definitely like more of a basketball city. But it depends. And maybe we'll see. The Patriots will get more successful at home this year. They definitely need it. And then I just want to end this today with some notable post-game quotes. Adrian Phillips, I already said the David Andrews one, but Adrian Phillips on Patriots fans showing up in LA, since we're talking about well-traveled fans. He said, "It's crazy. I love the fan base out in Boston. And I'm glad they're traveling with us and supporting us still, because it's been a frustrating season. To be able to see that fan support, it's real love." And I think that's something that is important to be reiterated, because, I just dealt with this guy on Twitter this morning where yesterday I just simply tweeted out that I love the Patriots. It was an hour or two, I think, after the game was over. And he is a gatekeeping boomer who shamed me basically for not being born 20 years sooner, because he says that he started going to games in 1976 and he had to deal with so many losing seasons and blah, 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 blah. So to address that, since I did on Twitter, but it just is one of those things that I think is funny, because obviously, 2/3 of my life was spent watching Tom Brady as the quarterback for the Patriots. And, that's just because that's my generation. I'm 32 years old. That's just, the way that my life has gone. That Tom Brady was a quarterback for 20 years. It's unheard of. It's never been done before. So, for the majority of my fanship, Brady was there and Brady was successful with the Patriots. So, I find it weird when people say things like that, where they say, like, you can't be a fan because you weren't a fan when they were super struggling. Like, I can't control when I was born. So, the fact that the players are seeing how dedicated the fan base is, despite the season, and now it's 4-4. They're not 8-0 or 7-1 like maybe previous seasons would be. The fans are still there and they're happy to support the team. And, I think, like I said, it's important to reiterate. It's not, a lot of the people that are fans of teams are not the trolls that are online. Those types of fans don't really exist in person. So, it was really cool to see, like Raw 94 said, that the stadium was loud with our fans, which I heard. Even I believe the commentators even spoke about it as well. How loud it was for the Patriots. So, like I said, I just want to make sure that we talked about that. And it was really cool that Adrian Phillips was able to experience that as well, as with such a crazy good game for him. So, anyway, guys, that's all I have to talk about today. Thank you guys for watching. I should be here on Saturday. I'm hoping to get in on Mondays and Saturdays so we can talk Oh, D22. So Sarah, maybe comment more after the live chat ends through the days after. Seems like you get way more views on the days after. Do you mean um like comment back to you guys, or what do you mean? And yeah, it does seem like I get more views when I don't get as many views live as I would like to, but that's okay. Got to start from the bottom, you know. Hopefully going to build that up, but I would like to go again on Saturday so we can talk about the Panthers game, which will be the first game against Stephon Gilmore. Um, and I was looking forward to this game if Cam Newton was the quarterback. Honestly, I wanted this to be a Cam revenge game, so we'll have to see. But Sam Darnold has not been great. I think he got injured yesterday, so this could be a much easier game than anticipated. But anyway, D22, so back and forth. Yeah, I can comment with you guys. I try to, and I'll try. I know that you comment a lot, so I'll make sure to do that. And if you guys can share the video, that would be awesome. Any tips and tricks you guys have to get my videos out there, feel free to let me know. Hopefully, I will be able to post some pre-recorded videos as well. I would like to be able to do that, like midweek check-ins or something. So if you guys have any ideas for pre-recorded videos and whatnot, please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to share. And I will see you guys on Saturday.